At exactly midnight, the old TV started showing a live view of Mason's house. But when he looked outside, the man standing on the porch wasn't there in real life. Then the whisper came from the TV. "I'm almost inside."
In the quiet suburbs of Portland, on a rain-soaked October night, 12-year-old Mason Reed discovered an old television sitting on the curb outside a neighbor's house. The TV was enormous, a heavy black box from another era with rabbit ear antennas bent like twisted fingers. A handwritten note was taped to the screen. "Do not turn on after midnight." Mason laughed. His father, Daniel Reed, was an electrician. Their garage was filled with broken radios, wires, and discarded gadgets. Mason loved fixing things almost as much as he loved scary movies. So he dragged the television into the basement. By the time he got it working, the digital clock on the wall read 11:58 p.m. Rain hammered against the basement windows. The house was silent. Upstairs, his parents were asleep. Mason sat cross-legged on the floor with a bowl of popcorn in his lap. The screen flickered to life. Static hissed. Then, at exactly midnight, the static cleared. The television showed the front of Mason's own house. Not a recording, not an old photograph, a live view. Rain poured over the porch exactly as it did outside. The camera angle seemed to come from the street. Mason frowned and walked to the basement window. The street was empty. No cars, no cameras, no people. He returned to the television. The image had changed. Now the viewpoint was closer. At the end of the driveway stood a tall figure in a dark raincoat. Its face was hidden beneath the brim of a wide black hat. Mason's mouth went dry. He looked out the basement window again. The driveway was empty. Back to the TV. The figure had moved to the front porch, standing perfectly still, watching the house. Mason's fingers trembled as he grabbed the remote. The volume rose by itself. From the speakers came a low, crackling whisper. "I'm almost inside." Mason ran upstairs and locked the front door. His parents remained asleep. He shook his father. Daniel did not wake. It was as if the entire house had fallen under a spell. The basement television thundered with static. Mason crept back downstairs. On the screen, the figure now stood in the living room, inside the house. Water dripped from its coat onto the carpet. Its head slowly turned toward the camera, toward Mason. The whisper returned. "You invited me." The basement lights flickered. A heavy footstep sounded behind him. Mason spun around. No one. When he turned back to the television, the figure was climbing the basement stairs, one step at a time. Mason could hear the exact same footsteps in the darkness above. Thud, thud, thud. The figure reached the top of the stairs on the screen. Then it began descending into the basement. On the television, Mason saw himself sitting frozen on the floor. The figure stood directly behind him, its gloved hand stretched toward his shoulder. Mason felt icy fingers touch his skin. He screamed and hurled the remote at the screen. The glass exploded. The basement went dark. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then the lights came back on. The television was dead. The screen was shattered. The figure was gone. Mason raced upstairs. This time, his parents woke instantly. They found him shaking and sobbing. Daniel searched the basement. Nothing was there, except broken glass and a ruined television. The next morning, the old TV was hauled to the dump. Mason never spoke about what happened. Years passed. Mason grew up and moved to Seattle. He became a filmmaker known for directing unsettling supernatural movies. But he never kept a television in his bedroom, not even as an adult. Then, on a stormy night nearly 20 years later, Mason awoke to the sound of static, a soft, familiar hiss. In the corner of his bedroom stood an old black television set. Its cracked screen glowed in the darkness. He was certain he had never owned it. The image on the screen showed his bedroom, live. Mason sat upright in bed. On the television, a tall figure in a dripping raincoat stood directly behind him, and through the speaker came the same crackling whisper he had heard as a child. "I told you, I was almost inside."